Welcome to Causing the Effect, a podcast focused on the exploration of your mind, body, and spirit.
My man, Jay Alderton, how you doing, brother? What's going on?
Good, Scott. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
I've been excited for Jay to come on. People, check out his actually two podcasts, The Body and the Beast, and then Mindset with Muscle. Now, I know what it's like to handle one podcast. It sounds like you've split up the mind and the body into two. I know that a lot of your work is with personal trainers. Tell me about the journey you took of, like, what was that first, if you had to break it down, the body, mind, spirit, what was the first kind of thing you had exposure to as far as being able to optimize it? Was it the body? Was it the mind? And what age did that whole thing start for you?
I would probably say that it started around 13 years of age accidentally. And one of the main reasons for that was I was what we call here in the UK a little shit at school. A very hyperactive kid, didn't really struggled to pay attention. And one of the things that caught my eye at that age was going to the gym. And what they actually did, the teachers at my school, was all the kind of naughty kids that were into their fitness, they would open the gym at lunchtimes for us to go and train, to let off some energy. So very much I was kind of obsessed with the gym from a younger age of, really enjoying lifting weights, wanted to get big. And I'm very fortunate to have got into kind of that body space at such an early age because, 24 years later, it's very much easier to maintain now because of the amount of time that I've been doing it. So it's all the subconscious habits and it's all, the routines for decades of doing. So that was very much kind of getting success and progress with my physique from a young age, gave me a lot of self-confidence, gave me a lot of self-esteem, and really, really helped me in, as I matured to my adult life. And when it came to really understanding my head, I would say, if we fast forward, there's a kind of a big gap in between, but I joined the army at 17 years of age, left at around 24 years of age. And that, of course, matured me a lot, but allowed me to push myself and understand discipline a lot better. But it wasn't until I left the army that I really understood what that mindset and that discipline is. And kind of the biggest takeaway for me with the head and with the mindset is your thoughts on your reality. And a lot of the things that you think aren't real. And I know we'll get into this probably a lot deeper, but when you feel that fear, it makes you want to not do something. And 9 times out of 10, you need to do the opposite. So life is very kind of counterintuitive. And if you want more things from life, you've got to do kind of the opposite of what your head's telling you to do. And the older that I get, the more I realize that to be true. And also the more that I realize that people struggle with that. So I've, over the years, pushed that in many different avenues by competing at a European and world level in physique competitions. So dieting myself down to very low body fat levels. It's not just physiologically difficult, but it's psychologically difficult as well. Pushing myself in charity events. I hold a Guinness World Record for box jumping Mount Everest. It's 14,550 box jumps on a 2-foot box in 22 hours and 35 minutes. So it's basically 10 box jumps a minute every minute for 24 hours straight. So I've got a lot of experience from testing my body and my mind, pushing it to the limits and learning a lot about myself and about the body and mind too.
Now we'll start with being in the army. You said at 17. So
Yeah.
what did you think you were going to get out of it, and what did you end up getting out of it when you look back 7 years later?
I think the main thing that I wanted to get out of it is direction, because I was heading in the wrong one. I very much needed at that time some kind of mentor or something to steer me in the right direction, because I wasn't really listening to people, I wasn't taking orders, and I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do with my life. I'd spent 2 years in college, passed one of the years and failed the other one, and I was drinking a lot. And I was like, right, there's 2 paths for me, the army or probably prison. So when I joined the army, everything changed because I was taking orders, I was doing the work, I was being told what to do, and doing it regardless of how I thought about it. And what that did teach me is that discipline element. It also allowed me to travel around the world in many different places that I wouldn't have traveled had I, not joined the army. So I saw different cultures. I saw how the world was very different to what I was used to. And that gave me a massive perspective on different things. So leaving the army, the biggest takeaway that I had from it was that self-discipline element and that perspective element, which was worth its weight in gold when I look back, and it was probably one of the best decisions that I'd made.
Yeah, and I think there is something that little piece you said before this with your thoughts aren't your reality is such an eye opener for people, because a little voice in your head, it's very convincing. And when you start understanding that that's basically just there, A, to keep you safe, and B, kind of programmed since you were a kid. So whatever, mommy and daddy, or that system that you brought up in from 4 to 6, whatever that is, that's kind of what'll get chirped. I'm not enough. I'm too fat. I'm too ugly. These things. When you started going through these, kind of embracing this discomfort, did you see this voice calm down in a way?
And so it never calms down, but I don't listen to it as much. And as strange as it sounds, I call this kind of the first voice and the second voice. And the first voice is always press snooze, don't do that. The first voice is what everybody hears that wants them to keep safe and comfortable with what they're familiar with. What people need to train is this second voice that then jumps in when this person is speaking. And to me, that second voice is the person that says, shut the fuck up, we're doing this.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And that's why I practice this thing daily, because what I need to do is bring out that second voice of everything that I do. Have that first voice, have that conversation, but get rudely interrupted by the second one that tells them to shut the fuck up.
And would you say there's almost an audit of this going on? Like when you're getting told something, right, from this little voice, just to even check if it's true? Because this is, I always told myself I'm not enough, and now we're like, where did this come from? You're pretty good at across the board. Is there some sort of audit that you went through in your 20s, that maybe, in the past, that to get to this point where it's, just telling yourself to shut the fuck up with that?
I think it's testing myself. Some of the things that I've done, a lot of the things which, I've been talking about with the charity events and different things, it's been holding myself personally accountable for them. I remember when I was using, actually back in sort of 2011, so about 11, 12 years ago, and that's when Facebook first launched Pages, and I was in the off season trying to gain muscle, and in order to gain the muscle, I needed to put myself through hell in the gym. And it's very hard to kind of push yourself. And I found this little hack, so to speak. And I had about 3,000 Facebook followers on my page. And what I would do is, about an hour before I went to the gym, I would post the workout that I was going to do. And it used to give me a bit like heart palpitations, because it was a very difficult workout. And the thing about posting that workout was that there was at least 3 or 4 people that I knew followed me on my Facebook page that were going to be in the gym at the time as I did that workout. So going into the gym, I didn't want to let myself down by people watching and going, he's full of shit. So I actually put myself through those brutal workouts. So it was an accountability thing. And a lot of the things like jumping on stage, a lot of things about doing these charity events, the scariest thing that I've done is announced it to my social media that I'm going to do it. Because then in comes people telling me that I'm not going to be able to do it. There's an element of self-doubt in there, but also there is a date, there is a time, and there is something that I've held myself personally accountable for. And for me, that's the scariest thing, because as soon as that thing is out, as soon as I've announced it, as soon as I've done the video or the post, there's no turning back on that. And that really has changed the game with really getting me more focused, getting me fired up. And it's not about letting others down, it's about letting myself down. So finding different ways to hold yourself accountable for the things that you say that you want to do.
Yeah, and you were just telling me earlier before we started about you do the same thing with the cold plunge. That's how you hold yourself accountable. So this is a technique Jay's using a lot. That's that piece of really understanding what is your biggest fear, and then basically just walking through it every time.
Exactly, and I think one, I think something that we spoke about before this is being your authentic self, and sometimes it's very hard to be your authentic self because you're not where you want to be just yet. For example, I want to be my authentic self by jumping in an ice bath every day, but it's very difficult for me to do because I haven't built up the habit, and I need to commit for it for a period of time. So what I need to do is document it so I can be my authentic self. So I'm living authentically with what it is that is going to help me be more authentic, be more confident, be the person that I want to be. So it is that accountability element. If you say fast forward 11, 12 years, I'm still doing it now. And it's not necessarily about letting others down, it's about letting myself down because I've said the things that I want to do at this moment in time that I know is going to help me push whatever needle forward at this moment in time that I'm pushing. And it's finding ways that you just don't give up on yourself. And many different ways of doing this these days is paying to play, putting some skin in the game,
Mm-hmm.
or holding yourself accountable to others. And social media is a great one for that because there are people that want to see you fail. And spite is a very, very powerful energy and driver.
Now, as far as that toolbox you're using, it sounds like you're very aware of kind of what you needed to do. And I feel like we're all this way, but there's a difference between knowing what I need to do and then actually doing it. How do you coach people to draw that line and take those steps? I feel like most of us know what we need to do. It's about kind of holding yourself accountable, maybe not to the extent of throwing it out on social media and then just big going for the home run. How do you get people to make that move?
I think a lot of it is reverse engineering.
Mm.
And it's something that a lot of people, like, I help a lot of PTs with their business now. I help a lot of people with their physiques. Someone will come up to me, and say, I want to lose 10 pounds. So what they'll do is they'll kill themselves for weeks in trying to achieve that number. And most of them do succeed because they go to extreme lengths to get there. So they might even lose that 10 pounds in a matter of weeks. But it's a poor strategy because what they've looked at is losing it, not maintaining it. And the outcome-based goal for that was not only to get there, but to stay there. So the strategy needs to change by saying to yourself, right, I need to think what's realistic with this in the time frame, in what can be done, and also once I get there, what can be maintained. So looking at losing a pound a week means that with a little bit, one or two mistakes throughout, one or two wobble weeks, I like to call it, you're looking at about 12 weeks for something like that. And taking something over a longer period of time like that is a lot more sustainable because it is slower. It is for a longer period of time, so you build up the habits and routines. And when you get there, you realize it wasn't as difficult as it was when you did it in a matter of weeks. And this is the same with, I spoke about the box jump, for example. A lot of that was understanding that Mount Everest was essentially 28,300 feet. So it was 14,000, I think, 14,550 box jumps. So I was just like, okay, cool. So we take that and then we divide it by 24. And then we divide that by 60. So we find out not the fact that we've got to jump Mount Everest. It's like, how many box jumps do I need to do in 1 minute to make sure that I'm a little bit further towards that end goal? And it is just breaking those things down in steps and then working towards it. Something that I say with the body is something called the SAID principle. And SAID stands for SAID. And what that stands for is specific adaptation to imposed demands. I've had a lot of people annoyed with my morning routine because it's hours long. But it wasn't always hours long. It was 30 minutes. And then I added things to it. And then I created a lifestyle to enable me to have that time to be able, to have that length of time of doing it. And a lot of people say, oh, that morning routine would lead me to burnout. That morning routine isn't sustainable. And it's like, no, because you're imagining yourself doing it today, not in 5 to 6 years' time, once you've built up the sets and reps and volume that's required to be able to do that. For you, that's a 3-hour morning routine. For me, that's Monday, because I've been doing this for 7 years. And that's that specific adaptation to imposed demands. You take a world champion runner on a treadmill and get him to run at max speed for 10 minutes. It will just be like a walk in the park to him. But for you, it'll be the worst 10 minutes of your life, even if you make it through one of those 10 minutes. And the only difference there is the specific adaptation to the imposed demands that he's placed on himself to be able to make that easy for him.
Hell yeah. Okay, let's get into this morning routine, Jay, because people are listening. They've told me, Scott, I only have 5 hours in the morning. I'm like, that's why we're up at 4 a.m., man. What does Jay's morning routine look like?
Okay, so before people listen to this, they'll get an eye roll. And I will say a disclaimer. You do not need to do this. This is not for you. This is my morning routine. Most people don't have 3 hours. I do have young children, hence why I do get up very early. But I also go to bed really early. I go to bed at 9 p.m. Because sleep is one of the most important things for life. So at least 7 hours sleep, I found is my sweet spot. 7.5, fantastic. So the morning routine for me is 4:30 in the morning, I get up. Straight away, I'm downstairs and I get my stretching mat out. I use an app called Pliability, and basically what I love about it is it has a 20 to 25 minute stretch session, and all you need to do is jump on the app and press play and just follow what it does. So for me, getting up straight away, I just press play and just do whatever stretch it says. So after that 25 minutes is done, I do some Wim Hof breathing. So I do 3 rounds of that, and then normally journal. I use this app at the moment called Day One, and I've just got a few questions that I ask myself. What am I thinking about? What am I going to do for fun today? Did I get triggered yesterday? What intention can I take through today that's going to make me feel great by the end of it? And what are the 3 most important things that I need to get done today? Now, which has changed, I would normally go to the gym straight away and then go proceed it, but I've just changed it now because I've just got a cold plunge tank. So I'm jumping in a ice tank. It's temperature controlled, so I set that for around 2 to 3 degrees C. So it's a couple of degrees just above freezing. It's kind of very sludgy water, very painful. 2 to 3 minutes. I then have a coffee to warm up, and then I head to the gym where I'd normally train for around an hour. And from there now I'm heading off back home, which I'm normally back for about 7:30, 7:45 in the morning. And the kids are up, just having breakfast, and get to spend a bit of time with them before they go out to school. And then I start my day, head to this office about 9, 9:30, I'll start my day of work.
I mean, I think you got everything covered. Have you ever heard of the 8 limbs of yoga, perchance, Jay?
No, I haven't.
So the 8 limbs of yoga were like the classic kind of full features of yoga that the ancient Tibetans said that you should start with. And I started looking deep into this, and it's funny. Both of us started with they say the first active piece of your day should be asana, which is posturing, which is what you're doing. The second piece is pranayama, breath work, and then the third is pratyahara, which is more of a mindfulness piece. And it's just so funny. All the successful people I have on, we all kind of do it without knowing it. I was doing posturing, my yoga at night, and since then I flipped to start the posturing in the day because I guess it's just more beneficial to be moving around first to kind of, for guys like us that are like, doers. So that's just very interesting that you started the exact classic way that a yogi would. I find that a lot of people in some way, shape, or form have to go through these techniques that really gain mastery over your respiratory process in a way.
Yeah, and for me as well, everything about that means that I do not have to do anything else for myself for the rest of the day. Sorry. So I don't have to finish work early to hit the gym. I don't need to do any like journaling or that. I've written down what I'm thinking and feeling. I've pushed myself mentally. I've pushed myself physically for the day, and the day hasn't even started yet. So I have a skip in my step. A lot of people, think, oh, 3 hours, that's very draining. Every single one of those activities is energy generating
Giving you.
activities, not energy draining. And I've always said this, that when you look at a dynamo on a bike back in the day, you have to spin that wheel for it to generate light. And that's the hardest thing for people to realize, that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people, a good gym workout isn't exhausting, it's exhilarating.
Yes.
And you have more energy when you do more. I find that, I don't know about you, Scott, but I get more on a rest day. I get more tired than an active day. I get so much more grouchy and tired when I'm not doing anything for the day than when I've got a busy day full of stuff to do.
No, I can't agree more. Yesterday, Thursdays are my worst day just because there's only a little bit of yoga happening. Like today, Fridays, me and Jay are talking on Friday. It's been leg day, and I feel like I'm ready to explode through this screen because it's just been so good. I think people don't realize that even if you want to call it selfish, if you're selfish in the till 9 a.m., I have the rest of the day to give to the family, to my job, to everything. And I think this word selfish gets thrown around a lot with people who are just being lazy. And I think you have to find your balance of doing things for yourself. Some people could do more. I'm single. Let's talk about that actually, because this balance, how have you created this? Because you have a successful online business, you have 2 podcasts, Body, Mind, and Spirits, all lined up, wife and kids. How do you manage all this?
I think it's understanding work-life balance, and I've managed to balance it well because I've fucked it up so much over the years. And it's the same with anything, when you just spoke about their selfishness and selflessness. You can be incredibly successful being incredibly selfless, putting the needs of others before yourself. But it's only a matter of time when you're not looking after yourself that then you become very selfish because suddenly everybody has to look after you. So the causation of extreme selflessness can turn the other way. That being said, extreme selfishness can produce incredible amounts of success. I come from a bodybuilding background. So if you prioritize your sleep, your training, your food above human connection, you will get in incredible shape. If you prioritize business, working hard, working all the hours under the sun, the chances are you're going to achieve an element of success. But it's the costs that comes at that, because one of the things that you are going to be losing when you're extremely selfish is love, support, and connection from others around you. And the only way out of those balance equations are if you are being extremely selfless and struggling personally. You need to tell people to fuck off for quite a long period of time to get some of that selfishness back. If you are being incredibly selfish and you're missing a lot of that love and connection with people and it's making you miserable, you need to now stop thinking so much about yourself and start thinking of others. So a balance of anything is always asking yourself the question, am I doing enough or am I not doing enough? And I have a very simple equation for this, and it's what I call my meltdown management scale. And it was actually a little scale that I created after I had a meltdown because I fucked it. I fucked the whole, when you talk about extreme selfishness, that's where I was, because I wasn't putting the needs of my family and the people that cared about me first. I was putting the needs of my own first. And it's a simple thing, and it's four things: health, wealth, productivity, and connectivity. They're the 4 things that you need to balance well in your life. Every day, you need to ask yourself, health. How healthy am I? 1 being shit, 5 being good. Put a number on it. Wealth. How wealthy do I feel? Not only just financial wealth, but social wealth. How wealthy do I feel of abundance in my life? 1 being shit, 5 being good. Productivity. Am I ticking the boxes and getting shit done? 1, not at all. 5, getting all those boxes ticked. And then connectivity. Am I connecting with real human beings off social media? 1, not at all. 5, loads. And what you tend to find is if you are 3 or less, then you need to really start focusing on that. And at the end of the week, if you've scored 3 or less in certain areas, you need to really focus on that the following week. What you tend to find as well is those that are very high in wealth and productivity are usually very low in sometimes health and connectivity. So it's a great simple scale for you to look at and go, where are my balances aligned? Because if you're getting the ones and twos for a long period of time, it's only going to be a matter of time before something breaks in that.
And particularly with COVID, Jay, that's what got me. I went on this productivity trip, and we're running the podcast, running the business, we're doing comedy. I look back 2-3 years. I thought I was so happy. I said, I haven't seen my family. I've been neglecting all these like little pieces of life that give you vibrancy. And I think that Western culture is kind of popularized that of going 100% in one thing. And I think it's fine if you absolutely love something, but I'm lucky enough to talk to these billionaires, these very successful guys who've really given everything, and they have all the money in the world, and they don't realize what they sacrifice. Their kid's birthday, being on vacation, have to sit in the back at the hotel and rip away. There's a price to everything, and I think understanding that, but accepting that if you want it, you're going to have to make a sacrifice too. It's because I think people have to understand the balance. It's almost always active. It's like the scale, because you have to constantly keep being mindful, but then also moving things around and being like, oh, well, are we going to go for a 4-5 in health? Are we going to go for a 4-5 in productivity? Do we need to connect more with the family? I think that's what needs to be spoken about more than like this hustle and bustle, 100 hours a week, blah, 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 blah. It sounds like you have a good balance on that.
Yeah. And for me, it's realizing what's important to me. And what's important to me is the freedom to make the decisions and choices that I want, and also the ability to be around with my kids and see them grow up and not have them see me stressed, unable to do certain things, lots of things on my mind, all of these things. And I say this to people all the time: children don't learn, they absorb. So what I want my children to absorb is the lifestyle that I have, and that is of freedom, of happiness, of being able to pick and choose what I want, doing difficult things, and being persistent and consistent with the things that we need to do.
Now, if we asked the Jay, let's say this other version of Jay, who was a little hyped up on the productivity, being a little selfish, what would you say his value structure looked like, and what does yours today look like?
I think one of the biggest things that Jay was struggling with is that he's good enough. And I think a lot of younger guys will understand this, that as you get older, you start to achieve more things. So you start to kind of say to yourself that you're good enough, that you're deserved of success. But when you've yet to have it, when you've yet to achieve things, it's the narrative that you tell yourself that you need to put the work in, you need to put the effort in, you need to have no days off because you haven't yet earned it. And once again, when we were talking about things being counterintuitive, it's not about getting to that destination, it's staying there. And if you work really, 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 really hard with no days off and everything, the chances are the worst thing that could happen is you'll get success with that. Because then suddenly in your head, and this is the mistake that I had, the only way that you think that you can be successful is by living your life like that. And that's where I was at that stage, because what I found from sort of 2013 to about 2016, what I found is that the more days and hours that I worked, the more successful I was getting. And the only reason that it was is because I didn't have a different perspective. I was working 7 days a week. I was taking no days off. I was getting hardly any sleep, and I was getting success with it. My social media was growing, the business was growing, everything was going, until it wasn't. Until suddenly I had to take kind of 6 months out to kind of refine myself. And then the next thing that happened around 2017 was that I tried a different approach. I didn't work 7 days a week, I worked 4. I didn't get 4 hours sleep, I got 7. I took weekends off to spend time with the family. I had Thursdays off to go and get a massage and sit at a spa with a written book and my phone, switched off. And what I found is I got just as much, if not more, success from doing that. And that suddenly that realization that there are many different ways to achieve this thing, and the way that I'm doing it now is very different, because I can sustain this way of doing it for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
That's a great piece, Jay, because I think that's a lot of the way men do stuff like that. That's how I was. I was just go. We'll just keep pushing, and you just don't worry about all that stuff. We will figure it out. Did I cut you off with something, Jay?
No.
Okay, cool. My question for you is, what there's these three phases of life that we all deal with, right? There's the present moment, Eckhart Tolle, being mindful, meditation, all this good stuff. Then there's the future version of yourself, talk Jordan Peterson, Joe Dispenza, creating your future. And then there's the past, trauma, dealing with that. What is your philosophy on those three phases? And how do you have maintenance on each piece to make sure that you are being the best version of yourself?
So a quote that I love is that you can't change the past, but you can ruin the present by worrying about the future. And there are certain different elements that we focus on. A lot of the time we're looking back at the things that we did, and sometimes we feel regret and we feel shame. But the next thing that you need to think of is, well, there's nothing that you can do to change that. That's been done. What we can focus on is what we can do today, and what we can focus on doing over the next few months, over the next few years. So it's having that kind of mental model to understand that you can't change that, but you can change what you're doing now. You can change in the future. When it comes to present, one of the biggest things that people struggle with is being present, because there's so much on their mind. And a lot of the time they do not allocate time to do fuck all. They don't put in their diary, like, brain dump down, to-do list, focuses for the day, and also clear days. Like, my weekend is my weekend for thinking. I'm not worried about work. I'll be focused on that on Monday, because I've spent Friday extracting my brain, knowing the things it needs to do, delegating things out, so I can have that free time. And my most creative time is normally on the weekends when I'm doing nothing. My best business ideas come from when I'm doing nothing. Something that's been bothering me for a couple of weeks has been solved on a Saturday playing with my kids when I'm not thinking about it. So it's understanding the importance of that. And also the future. I think a lot of people worry so much. A lot of anxiety comes from fear of the unknown, of something that is yet to happen. And then sometimes you have to realize, well, it's not fucking happened yet. In fact, most of the things that take up most of your time in your head never happen. So a lot of that comes down to that meditation route. A lot of that has those mental practices that you do each day to free yourself from your own head. I love a quote from Naval Ravikant that says, people don't want peace of mind, they want peace from mind. And it's having those practices to be free of thoughts, which is very hard when, if you're a business owner, if you're looking to achieve something, you're constantly thinking. But sometimes the solution comes when you're not. Sometimes, I force myself into the ice bath every day because I can't think of anything while I'm in there. And that's the most beautiful thing, because I have that peace from the mind. Meditation in itself is teaching you and training you to have a thought and allow it to pass. There are ways that you can build up training, and there's the extreme ways of doing it. And it's something that you need to practice every day. So it's being mindful of those states that you are in. If you're very much thinking of shame and regret, it's because you're thinking too much into the past of something you can't change. A lot of the time, people overthink things that have yet to happen because they haven't written things down. They haven't really understood what their emotion that they're experiencing right now. Like, a lot of people couldn't tell me what anxiety feels like. I can tell you what anxiety feels like. Are you into computer games, Scott, when you were younger? Did you play the Nintendo or the Sega Mega Drive at all?
Of course.
Did you ever get to the big boss where the music changes and he hasn't yet appeared on the screen? And you may have only had one life left, and that music changes, but you can't see him yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's anxiety.
That's great.
That is anxiety because you haven't yet experienced what is going to happen. You think something bad is going to happen. And with the game, it is, because you've got the big boss and you've only got one life left. And, chances are you're going to be, unlike these games these days, you can't save it. It's just start again. But that's anxiety. It's just this closed, deep breath, shallow breath, like of just imagining something that is yet to happen. And when you do experience that, it's noticing it and just allowing it to pass over and going, cool, why am I experiencing this? What am I thinking about? Do not allow that thought to affect my future. Because once you feel anxiety and you continue through it and then achieve what it is that you're looking to achieve, whilst having that anxiety, you will prove to yourself that you can get over it. You can prove to yourself that you can push through that emotion and still achieve success. And when you get that success whilst experiencing that emotion, you've just proven to yourself that you can get over it.
Definitely. Have you ever read Richard Dawkins' book, Letting Go?
I haven't, no.
Oh, I'll send you a link to it. It's wonderful. It's about, basically, it's called The Pathway of Surrender, and it's about letting these feelings of anxiety or hate or regret, whatever, very similar to what you said, instead of resisting them, pushing them away, really letting it run through you, but really running it to the end and seeing that it's exactly what you said to start this, that it's just a feeling. It literally has really not a lot of correlation to what you're doing. It's really just kind of seizing you from taking action.
100%.
Now, as far as this, let's talk about freedom, entrepreneurialism, all this stuff. Because I get a lot of emails from young guys. I want to, Scott, I'm doing my 9 to 5. I have this, whatever, but I have this idea. And usually they're a little out there, right? With pottery, professional wrestling, whatever, this singing. They don't know how to take that first step. And I feel like that's always the hardest part. How would you talk someone through taking action towards this weird thing that, in your heart's right, but oh, the world's going to say, talk to me about it, blah, blah, blah. You have to deal with all this nonsense of going against the grain.
So there's a number of things. Firstly, that, with any kind of being an entrepreneur, running a business, you're in the game of solving problems, and people have a lot of problems. So whatever it is that you're looking to do, you need to get fucking good at doing it. So you're not instantly going to be good at it, but you'll never be good unless you start doing it. So the first thing to do, of course, is start, fuck up, learn. And be patient, because it's going to take you, if you have the mindset of going, it's going to take me 3 to 5 years to get even slightly good at this shit, then you'll be patient. And each time that you invest in doing that consistently, it's being like bamboo. And I say this all the time. As an example, when you plant a bamboo seed and water it for a year, nothing happens. When you water it for 2 years, nothing happens. And when you water it for 3 years, it sprouts out the ground a little bit. And there's certain species of bamboo that can grow 90 feet in 6 weeks. It's one of the fastest growing plants. And it wasn't for those 3 years that it wasn't growing. It was creating a solid foundation for its exponential growth. And what you need to do if you want to become successful in something is spend that time watering that seed, developing and building that solid foundation, because the last thing that you want to do is achieve overnight success in a short period of time, because you'll just be like that bamboo that grows 90 feet in 6 weeks and then topples over because you have no solid foundation to support that growth. And I think that is so important to understand when it comes to it. One of the biggest things that I've found with younger guys is lack of patience. And they think that if they don't achieve success by 20, that their life is over, or they don't achieve success by the time they're 30, that their life is over. And I thought this in my 20s. When I'm 30, if I don't achieve this by 40, I'm 37 now, and I still don't think that I've figured out the thing that I want to do with my life fully. And I'm so fucking excited about it, because 40 to 50 is going to be even more fun. And you just come to this realization then that you've got so much time, but people waste time because they're worrying what they should do, what should do. And what they should do is just stop getting so fucking distracted and just focus on getting fucking good at something, one thing. And that's the thing that so many people lack these days, is distraction, because one of the things that's beautiful about 2022 is the fact that you can Google and YouTube anything and become fucking good at anything. But you can't become fucking good at everything, because you've just got to focus on getting very good at one thing. So the first thing is find that thing, beat on your craft. The next thing is there's 3 ways of becoming successful. There is guesswork. And with anything, you need to guess to find the answers to get better. There is hard work. You need hard work and guesswork combined in order to get success. But there is a little hack, and it's called framework. And one of the things that I would be focusing on is knowing what it is that I wanted to become successful in, and finding those individuals who have managed to achieve that success, because they've made a lot of the fuck ups and failures which you're probably going to make, and it might help you skip a few chapters if you learn from their frameworks so you can get ahead.
And I think that the relationship that a person has with failure really would make or break, because that's, even I could tell that your relationship with failure isn't mine, because it's like, fuck it, fuck up, let's restart, fuck up, restart. Was that something that was always innate you? Did you learn that from being a youngster, or is that something you developed over time?
So with the army, what happens is normally when you go on operations and you do something, you have what's called an after action review. And what an after action review is basically learning from failure or learning from success. And it was just 3 basic questions: what went right, what went wrong, and what can be improved next time. And with anything that you do, the problem that a lot of people have is when they fail, they bury their head in the sand and they don't think about the things that went wrong, because it's too painful for them. Their ego's taken over and everything. But there's great lessons to be learned from failure, because it's feedback. So one of the things that I'll ask myself, and I've had a major fuck up, is, okay, cool, what went right? There must have been a few things that went right. What went wrong? There was a lot of things that went wrong. And then the most important one is, what can be improved the next time that I do this? Because most people allow failure to be that one time and one time only, and then suddenly they've convinced themselves that that's not for them. In actual fact, what you need to do is learn from that, try something different the next time. And then if that fucks up and fails, learn from it, try something different the next time. Because if you are persistent enough in something that you are passionate about and wanting to do, you'll be one of the very few that becomes successful in that thing.
And it sounds like you're just kind of not removing your feelings from, but just stepping aside from the feeling piece of it and just saying, listen, that it's this simple. It's dissecting how we did, what went wrong, and how we could do something better. It's that simple.
You don't yet know. You don't yet know the outcome yet. And some examples of this: when in 2012 I was made redundant from my job. I was working as security advisor for the UN in Nairobi, Kenya, and I got made redundant. Was kind of broke. I put all of my savings into a mortgage with my wife, and it was the worst thing at that time that had ever happened to me, because I had no money. I had a big mortgage to pay and no job. And that moment allowed me to follow the thing that I wanted to do, and that was to become a personal trainer. And that was that kind of failure was the most amazing thing that ever happened in my life, because it forced me into following my passion. When I spoke earlier about the meltdown, at that time was the worst thing that ever happened in my life. I split from my wife. I moved out. I was wondering what on earth had happened, especially as I had such a successful year. But what that fuck up and failure allowed me to do is to get back my life, to not work 7 days a week, to work 4, to have a great family life, to have a lot of balance and fulfillment and happiness in my life. So had it not happened, I wouldn't be where I was today. So some of the worst things that are going to happen to you in life could very well be the best things that ever could happen to you with time, because we learn so much more from those fuck-ups and failures than we do from succeeding. And some of the biggest kind of failures that I've had have come from succeeding too quickly, because it creates a bit of ego and naivety.
Yeah, and I think it's so hard to tell in the moment when something bad, quote unquote, like, these catastrophic things happen to you. It's hard to tell if they're actually the best thing. Like I went through a divorce 3 years ago, and I would have said that was the worst thing, but ended up being the best thing. Exposed me to so many things, and it kind of forces you to look at yourself in a different, like how you said, perspective earlier, to see what paths work and what paths don't.
Yeah,
Cool, man.
and you never would have realized that had you not gone through it.
Did you ever hear the parable of the Chinese farmer, Jay?
I did.
Yeah.
I was gonna tell you
Yeah,
about
that's
that
a
one, but
well, we won't go through it, everybody, but just Google it. It's basically, once upon a time, there's a Chinese farmer, his horse ran away, and then everybody says, "Oh, that's such bad luck." He says, "Maybe," and it keeps going down until, you just never know what situation is gonna, help you or hurt you, in the way. So, that's great, Jay. Anything coming up that you want to talk about, or what's going on for the end of the year?
so as I said, I'm always excited because year after year we pivot and change into different things. This year's been very much focused on B2B, helping personal trainers, but I've had a massive amount of growth with the personal brand this year. So very much next year I'm focusing more on getting my message out and working with more clients, transforming them. Something I already mentioned is transformation starts from the neck up. So getting people's head right and making sure that their body follows. So I'm very much focusing on my mindset of muscle podcast next year and my mindset of muscle program and app next year, which I hope to launch around the springtime next year.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, and everybody, you could find all of the links below to the Body and the Beast podcast. With that one's with Dan, or Dan's with mine.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that's one's with a
Great
good friend
name.
of mine, Dan.
Great name.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're the
Yeah.
Body.
Yeah, it was a funny thing because we've been good friends for many years, and about 5 years ago, we used to just jump on the phone and chat for an hour, and these conversations were so funny but also so valuable. I turned around to Dan and I was like, "We need to record this shit." And we recorded one episode. He had his beard scratching on those old iPhone, those wired things, and we did it on Zoom. We just put it out there, and we got 36,000 downloads in 24 hours, and got the #1 podcast in the UK with the first episode. And we're onto something here. We had a 4-year hiatus with it, and we're back. Now. We're 4 episodes in. And it's like therapy for us because we're both in very similar kind of business space, both at similar positions in life, but very different individuals. We have different habits and routines. I'm a 4:30 a.m. seize the day guy, and Dan's kind of the 9 o'clock wake up, check his phone for memes kind of guy. But both have achieved great success, and we both think as much as the ways of skinning the cat is the same, the cat is still skinned. So as much as we have different approaches, we get the same result.
Yeah. No, I was listening to a couple. You guys have some chemistry there. So we'll put that below, the Body and the Beast, as well as Mindset with Muscle. But Jay, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining me, man. It was really a pleasure.
Scott, thanks for having me.
Cause and the Effect community, thank you guys so much. As always, stay safe, stay positive, stay blessed. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.